Undertaker, The Last Ride, Chapter 2 is titled The Redemption for his match that he had with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33. It starts off in January of 2018 when you see The Undertaker and Michelle McCool on their couch watching the match he had with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania the year before. And Taker is extremely critical of his performance. He almost has tears in his eyes at one point. He's ripping himself. He's saying, he looked out of shape, and he feels bad for Roman Reigns that he had to endure working with him that night. And it's really sad seeing The Undertaker put himself down that way, but that's just the standard he has. He's been such a great performer for so long. He has to have a great performance. And when you watch that match again, it was bad. There was bad spots, and it really got bad near the end in particular. You even saw that tombstone spot when Undertaker messed up the tombstone. He even had to look away from the TV, and that was pretty sad. But there was worse matches on that card than that match, to be honest. So, he has a high standard. We see Vince say, Undertaker wasn't himself there, basically. And that was pretty revealing. It was in a way where Vince, he said it that, it was just Taker. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't do the things he wanted to. Even if, he has a bad hip, you feel sorry for him. It's just seeing it happen must have just been really frustrating. Then we go to the surgery, and this is where we hear about The Undertaker. We knew he had to get hip replacement, but it's in New York City, and he's there with these doctors, and the doctors are actually wrestling fans, and that was actually pretty funny. They even play The Undertaker's theme music, which I thought was funny too. And he's pretty at ease with retirement. He's talking to Michelle McCool, and it feels like he's ready. He's set. He's set. What? I'm good. I'm ready to move on. And what happens is Michelle knows him. She knows him. She knows that once he starts to feel better, he's going to feel too good and he's going to wrestle again. And it's right before WrestleMania. That's when he's going to get healed up. So he has the surgery. We see the graphic photos or the graphic parts of it. They drill into his hip. Really, that hip replacement's really gross. But he's okay, and he recovers pretty quickly. And in the end, it's nice to see him in a way where he's walking better. Just seeing him at WrestleMania 33, those photos, the guy couldn't walk. It was sad. Here, he's walking, and at WrestleMania 34, he looked a lot better than he did at 33. So next, we go to The Undertaker and his wife, Michelle McCool. We learn a lot about their relationship. We see the wedding pictures. Taker there, they talk about how they met, and it happened when she was throwing a football, and it was pretty funny because he said Michelle McCool didn't want to meet Kane and The Undertaker. She was probably scared because they were, scary wrestlers, but Kane is probably the nicest guy, and of course she ends up marrying The Undertaker, Mark Calloway. And at this time, I did not know this. This surprised me, as they finished talking about their relationship, and they have kids. I did not know Undertaker's contract had expired. It's like, really? That was, I did not hear that. It happened in 2017. And I'm thinking to myself, I thought I remember hearing his contract was going to expire a couple years ago or something, but I did not know it happened then, because I remember he was going to do that, the WrestleCon, not WrestleCon, the StarCast, last year, I believe. So maybe it expired here too. I'm not sure. But he's there, and we then hear about his relationship with Vince McMahon, and as he's waiting for Vince, we see it. We see a lot of old stock footage, which is of Undertaker and Vince, and of course the two of them are really close. And once they actually interview Vince McMahon and ask him about his relationship with The Undertaker, Vince, I don't know, I've seen Vince cry a lot the last couple of years for some reason. I read the Andre documentary, he was crying, and I guess he's an emotional guy, but with The Undertaker, he couldn't talk because, he didn't want to get choked up on camera. So, like with Michelle, we learn about their relationship, and we see Big Show talk about Shawn, Batista, Kane, Bret Hart, all talk about it in great detail. Undertaker says it's, Vince and him, he is no one's had a bigger influence in his life than besides his father, than he's had with Vince. And we hear things where we don't get into detail, but Undertaker seems like he was in a bad place in his life, and Vince would sit him down and talk to him. I don't know if they want to talk with us. I'm not sure if Undertaker's going to get into this, but I've heard one of the reasons that Undertaker comes back, it's financial issues. Dave Meltzer's reported it. I'm not sure if that's true. It could not be true. Maybe it's not. But from what I've heard that before, in which there's problems in which he's had 2 divorces or something. And I think he also has made bad investments. He's lost money in real estate and stuff. So maybe that's one of the reasons. But we don't get into that. He don't get into that too much. And Vince would sit him down, and he was almost like a father figure to him. So we hear the 2 of them hearing a lot about their relationship. It's Undertaker comes off really good. We heard the parts with him and Michelle, their relationship, and of course his relationship with Vince. It's actually really heart-melting watching this. And then we get to the meeting, and Vince there, and he immediately shuts down the cameras. He tells them to go away. So, great, thank you, Vince. We're in your documentary for your fucking network, and we don't get to see this the best part. So, thank you, Vince. We then hear that he signed, and what happens is he's eventually contacted for a match with John Cena, and Undertaker has to set up his own ring because he can't be at the Performance Center. I think this is similar to what we saw with Edge in the 24 special. Undertaker sets up his own ring in Austin, Texas, where he lives, and he has bumps. He's taking his own bumps. He's running the ropes, and eventually Primo of the Colognes comes to work with the Undertaker. Primo was recently released. He's sent there. He probably lives in Texas, so he works with him. They do well. We see Undertaker hitting the ropes good after his hip. He takes bumps. Michelle's there, and once he starts to really get back into the groove, we see him do well again. This is when it starts to change. It turns around, and he is in a situation where he doesn't want to embarrass himself. That's clear. He's really humiliated from that match with Roman Reigns, and we can clearly see how much of an effect it had on him. And once he starts to do better, he eventually tells Michelle to send a video to Vince in which he does the Undertaker rolling the eyes, and he sends it to Vince McMahon during the Elimination Chamber. This would be 2018, so the show in Las Vegas, I believe. He sends it during the pay-per-view, and Vince reacts with he says "fuck yeah." Undertaker doesn't say exactly that, but that's pretty much what he said. We see a great amount of training footage, and we get really good insight into his decision process. We see that the work it took to him getting back into ring shape is on full display. Undertaker takes the cameras into the training sessions, and we don't really see any filter. It's pretty cool that he has all these cool posters there. He has the Royal Rumble 2001 poster. That's when they were in New Orleans. It has all the Attitude Era wrestlers on Bourbon Street, from Austin to The Rock to Undertaker, Triple H. Pretty much every single top star in the Attitude Era on Bourbon Street. That was really cool, that poster. And next we get to when he makes his decision. He eventually goes to WrestleMania 34. And his confidence is growing stronger here. We see him, I guess it rained the night before WrestleMania, so it's pretty rainy, but he eventually gets into the Superdome. He does the rehearsals the night before. We see him getting his hats. And once he is there, his entrance is similar to how it was the year before with him coming up from the ramp, so we see that too. And when we learned the situation at 34 was he couldn't be seen, so they wanted that whole thing with John Cena. We see the promo again with Cena. Cena's ripping him apart on the Raw promo, shooting on him. The whole point was they had to bring back the Undertaker, and they were doing that thing where will he be there, will he not be there? Most people thought he'd be there, but they were almost teasing like he wasn't going to be there. They wanted you to make you think he wouldn't be there. They were going to have John Cena in the arena. Remember that? All right, that's funny seeing Cena there. He's taking pictures with all the fans, which was pretty funny. He's just sitting there right before the show even started. We see him in the front row. Many pictures. I thought that was actually a really really funny there. He was even watching the Charlotte-Asuka match and did go back to his reactions. And I remember right when Charlotte breaks the streak, which is funny, it's breaks the Undertaker, we see another big streak broken, Asuka streak. Asuka taps, Asuka and Charlotte hug, and they all of a sudden in the back when we see someone telling John Cena, Cena's eyes go big, and he runs to the back, and Undertaker's getting ready for his match. He's training. He's looking really good. He's hitting the pads hard. He's in New Orleans again. He wants redemption. So it's a two-way redemption in a way. He's going to get redemption for the match he had with Brock Lesnar the year before, Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 33. A year later, he was mad about that match. He also gets redemption for the Brock Lesnar match in which he was knocked out, and he gets to go on a high note in New Orleans. And he eventually is there. They have him under a curtain on the golf cart, which is pretty entertaining. They really don't want anyone to know. It's like, all right, who cares? Even if he gets out to the dirt sheets, who cares? I hate when they do that. They do that stuff all the time. Whenever there's a big surprise, they have to keep you in secret. It's just dumb. Really, it's like, what's the big deal if someone finds out? So we eventually get to the match with John Cena. We see John Cena comes out, and Cena has the battle with Elias. Actually, he beats up Elias. Of course, he'd embarrassed him again the year before. And Cena walks up the ramp, no Undertaker. All of a sudden, lights go out. Dong. We hear the gong hit, and then we see the Undertaker's gear in the middle of the ring. Taker comes out. He makes his entrance. He faces John Cena. He beats him in a 5-minute squash match. Undertaker, after the match, he's disappointed. He wanted the match to go longer. I thought it was the best. I thought 5 minutes was how it should have been because that story. If they were to have Undertaker on TV building up the match, I would have thought differently. But the fact was, Cena's antagonized the Undertaker. It was basically not really a real build-up. We didn't even know if the match was going to happen until the last second. So right when it finally does happen, I thought it told the story well because it was just about Undertaker kicking John Cena's ass. That's kind of how the story was meant to be told. So I didn't have a problem with it being a 5-minute match, but Undertaker was unhappy. He wanted it to be, he was training for 45 minutes, so we see him hugging everyone in the back, talking to Shawn, talking to Vince, to Hunter, to everyone there, all the top stars in the company, and he's basically saying he wished it would have gone longer, and he can't give an answer as to whether that was his final match, which of course it's not, but we already know, just by the look in his eye, he knows it's not the last match. And even the idea that it was, he was already booked for a match 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later with Rusev in Saudi Arabia, so obviously it was not. I thought this chapter, how it ends with the cliffhanger, well, he won't be back, and then they show the preview for next week, which is going to be Undertaker. It's like another down. This was the redemption, and there's going to be the fall like part 1 was, and another redemption, which will probably be part 4. But we hear a lot about that terrible match he had with the tag team match, Undertaker and Kane against Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I'm looking forward to their reaction because that was one of the worst matches ever. It really was. So we're going to hear a lot about that. I'm sure the Goldberg match will probably be part 4, I believe. Some of those matches were awful. But this was an excellent one. I thought the redemption was just as good as the Greatest Fear. The Greatest Fear was more noteworthy, I would say, but I thought the redemption was really well done. It was a great part 2. A little bit more upbeat near the end. We see we get a close-up. We hear him open up. We see a lot more of Mark Calloway. We hear, the relationship he has with his wife and, of course, his relationship with Vince. So I thought this was really well produced. I thought it was well done, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to part 3. And I think there was going to be a gap between part 3 and part 4 and 5, but this has been easily the best series they've produced. Even there's been great 24 specials, I don't think anything's been well produced as this, and this has been shot for over 3 years, so they've been preparing to make this special, and this has just been excellent in my opinion. So I can't wait for next week. Part 2 delivers. It's basically, I'm looking forward to it like watching a pay-per-view. That's how much I'm looking forward to it. So I thought this was a great episode, and I'm looking forward to watching Chapter 3 of The Last Ride next week.